Get started. All right, so we are back for another session, but this day it is Lab Fun Day. I know it's been a while. We're going to go over some theory. So we are going to cover what we've been covering in part 2 of the book, chapter 4. So just a refresher, we've been talking about, access to the CLI via either, physical console cable or, of course, SSH and Telnet, the differences, navigating through the CLI, and a bunch of other things. So we're going to go ahead and recreate that. And I thought the best way to do that is using packet tracer. We could have used EVE-NG, but let's not get too crazy because of course this is the CCNA. All right, so let's go ahead and pull a computer. Go ahead and pull a PC. All right, so we have a PC here, and let's get a networking device. Let's get a switch. I love switches. All right, okay. Right, so we have that. Yes, we have that. And let me just do a check to make sure. There we go. All right, so we're good. Okay. All right. So again, we're reviewing chapter 4, where we've been so far. So again, remember I told you guys, of course, the different ways to access the CLI on a network infrastructure device. Okay. And let me, you know what? Let me do this. Zoom this in a little bit. There we go. Hopefully that looks better. I'm getting old, so my eyes are terrible. So we have our PC, right? And we can switch to a laptop, whatever, right? So right? We have our console cable. We want to get into this switch so we be able to access CLI, right? Let's say we want to go ahead and access it via console cable, right? So you would have your console cable, plug it into your port, right? I'm sure you guys saw that it said RS-232. That is the old school, super old school cable, right? Um, for RS-232s to work now, you would need a rollover cable, right? But again, don't harp too much on that. I just want to give you guys the background on it just in case you have questions, okay? And we're going to plug it into a console port, all right? Perfect, okay? So we have that in, right? So let's go ahead and get into our PC, all right? Let's go ahead and blow this up a little bit. All right, so we're in our PC, and let's go to our applications, all right? And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and get into putty or what have you, anything that'll enable us to go ahead and get into the terminal. So let's go ahead and click the terminal button, right? And this is what I love about Packet Tracer, right? Is that you can be on the go. If you want to go to, for some odd reason, you want to go to Starbucks, you're on the road, you're on vacation, but you want to spend some time to go ahead and study and practice, do some labs, which I recommend you're able to do it in Packet Tracer. That's the benefits of having a home lab that's stationary and Packet Tracer on your PC for the CCNA. It can really help you, right? So let's get back to it, right? So remember, within our lessons, we talked about, some of the basics of whenever you connect via console cable, what's that default configuration will be, right? Whenever you connect in, right? What those parameters will be, right? The bits per second, that's always going to be 9600 by default, right? The data bits, it's always going to be 8-bit ASCII, okay? And the parity bits, it's by default, it's always going to be no parity bits, right? And the stop bits are always going to be one stop bit, right? And hardware flow control, right? Of course, you see here it just says flow control. It will always be off, okay? If it's on, it must be a good reason. So anywhere you see that it's none, right? Or anything outside of default values, it's for a reason, right? And typically the main value that you would change now with the different types of console cables, what I mean by that, console cables using straight USB to, of course, RJ45 or USB to USB, the bits per second may change, right? And I know for a fact, I'm sure you guys seen it so far, some of those USB console cables now, they tend to use 115, 200. But that's typically one of the things that you guys would change. Other than that, you're rarely going to change any of these values. Okay. So now we have our configuration. We have to go ahead and use terminal, right? We can go ahead and press OK. Guys, bear with me. Let me go ahead and change the font. Give me 1 second. That font is a little bit short. 14, that's fine. There we go. Let's see how it looks now. All right, let's do the same thing. Okay. All right, that looks better. Okay, so let's put it on that side. All right, so we are consoled into the switch. All right, so we're in, right? And to keep it short, that's how you get in via console cable. You're able to access a network infrastructure device using a console cable. Make sure your configurations that you saw in chapter 4 are correct, right? And after a while, you keep labbing and labbing either on physical equipment or using packet tracer. It'll become second nature of those default settings. So once it becomes second nature, boom, you're in. Okay. So we're actually in the device, right? And so what about accessing it via telnet or via SSH, right? So let's go ahead and give that a shot and see if we can get in, right? And let's do some configuration, right? First, we'll go ahead and try telnet, okay? So do some configs, some basic configs to enable telnet on this switch. Oops, wrong screen. Okay. Let's call this switch 1. What does it say? Switch 0. Let's call it that. Cool. All right. So now we're in global configuration mode, and we'll talk about the different modes in a second, right? Again, we want to touch on how to access the CLI. Okay. So, wait 1 second. Answering a team chat. 1 second, guys. Okay. All right, guys. Sorry about that. I had to go ahead and answer Teams chat for work. All right. So let's go ahead and do it. So we're in global configuration. Okay. Now we want to modify and access the network infrastructure device using telnet. So let's go ahead and first give the device a IP address, right? So we're going to give an IP address to the SVI or switch virtual interface. We will get to layer 2 and layer 3 and VLANs, what have you, at a later date, right? For now, just follow me as far as I'm configuring, okay? What I'm assigning here is a virtual IP address. 25. Oops, 25. Okay. Typically with VLANs, you don't have to do no shut, but some of the old school network infrastructure devices from Cisco, you do on the VLANs. So we have that configured, that's up and running. Okay. So now let's go ahead and get into the VTY lines, right? Because that's where, right, telnet and SSH sit at. Okay. So we're going to touch on line VTY0, right? And first thing we have to do is we have to set a password, okay? Because whenever we log in, it's going to prompt us for a password if we try to log in via layer 3, okay? So we went ahead, we set a password, made it easy, right? And now we're going to set a few things, make sure we enable everything properly. Let's add in a few settings. And this is just what I know by default, in my head, second nature. So you guys can follow me. I will explain this at a later date, okay? All right, exit. Okay, all right. So that's good. And last but not least, let's put in our enable password, okay? So make sure we have that. All right, so everything's good. Everything's all right. Let's go ahead and save that configuration. All right, so we have that, right? We have that configured. Now we need to go ahead and get into the PC, right? And see if we can access via layer 3. But first, we need to go ahead and do a connection via layer 1, right? So we can talk via layer 2 and so on, all right? So we're gonna hop out of here, take a step back, and go ahead and connect via cable, right? So let's go ahead and connect to the fast Ethernet port and go ahead and connect to that, all right? Little thing about packet tracer, right? Green means it's good to go, just like a stoplight, right? Orange or red, there's an issue, right? Maybe the connection is blocked due to spanning tree, something at layer 2, or there's something going on with the link, or the link is down, okay? So we'll give it a second, wait for it to come up. It should come up easily. While that's working, let me go ahead and configure an IP address in that same subnet. Let's give it 50. Perfect. All right. Let's not give it a gateway for now because it should still work. And let's X that out, right? So the first thing we're going to do, like I tell all you guys, let's go ahead and confirm, right, layers 1 through 3, okay? How do we do that? Let's go ahead and ping first. Let's see if we can ping the switch, okay? So I gave it 25. Let's see if that works. Okay, we got pings working, all right? So now that we have pings working, let's go ahead and see if I can go ahead and telnet via its IP address on that switch, all right? If I remember correctly. Okay, all right. So what are we seeing here, right? I put telnet, the IP address of the device, trying the IP address, and then open, meaning the telnet connection was successful, okay? And I go ahead and put in the password. I think that password was pass123. I'm in, right? I'm in, right? So now I have access to the CLI, okay? Via layer 3, right? Not using a console cable, which is layer 1, okay? Enable, I put that in, same password, I'm in, okay? All right, so, and that's exactly what chapter 4 talked about, okay? You're able to access it either using SSH, okay? So now that we're in, and if you guys remember, during our session, we talked about the difference between encrypted data and unencrypted data. Well, the reason why Telnet is not talked about a lot and is not used anymore is because that traffic that traverses using Telnet is unencrypted, meaning it's all sent in plain text. Okay. How is that a security issue? Right. So let's say somebody gets in your network, how you guys set up your network or secure it, right? Anybody can plug in, they'll have access to the network, right? And so they plug in, they go ahead and start Wireshark, they can see everything that's happening, right? And let's say you're trying to log in, they can see exactly what you're typing in. They'll capture that. They'll say, all right, buddy, we'll see you later. They'll come back to your network and log into your infrastructure device. Okay. So we do not want Telnet to be roaming around our network. Okay. So we want to use SSH, right? So there's a couple things we have to do, right, to go ahead and enable SSH. Okay. Now this is the technical side of it, right? The book, when you guys read it, because of course that's up to you for you guys to read, is going to go over what you have to do to go ahead and set up Telnet and SSH. Okay. So follow me, right? And if you have questions, I will answer it. But oops, if I'm not able to answer some of them, just keep that in mind and I will answer it at a later date. Okay. Let me do that first. That is correct. So I was right. I was on the right path. Let's call this, since the flash is coming out. There we go. All right. Let's do. There we go. Okay. All right, so I went ahead and created a domain, right? And that's the first thing I had to do because that is required for SSH, right? Then I need to go ahead and create encryption keys. That's what I did as far as where it says crypto key generate RSA. I'm telling the switch or the infrastructure device, hey, generate some keys, right? That's going to go ahead and be set on this device. All right. So once that's done, right, that's set. Now I need to, the last but not least, I need to go ahead and enable SSH. Okay. So, whoops, sorry. All right. As you can see, I went ahead and enabled SSH, and I made sure I put version 2. There's a couple versions to SSH. I'll let you guys read that. Okay. I just want to get to I just want to go ahead and show you guys the theory of accessing a device using Telnet SSH. And of course, we'll talk about it in later labs, okay, once you guys get a handle on routing and switching. Okay. Setting a few parameters. Okay. And of course, what I'm saying here is, if I'm trying to access a device using SSH, I can retry to access it up to 4 times. After that, it'll time out. Okay. And we can go ahead and see how that looks like after this. Okay. So I went ahead and set my timeout. Okay. Timeout is at 50 seconds. So if nothing happens on the CLI from my PC, it'll go ahead and time out. Okay. So that's set. And last but not least, what we have to go ahead and configure is the VTY lines. Okay. When you go ahead and go into line configuration mode, go to the same thing. Okay. All right. And since we already have Telnet, let's go ahead and put all so we don't, bump us out. Okay. Let's set the same password. Okay. Set login. Okay. And typically, right, in a production environment, you don't want to put all, right? You don't want to, because what that's going to enable is Telnet and SSH. Okay. You want to go ahead and strive for security as well. So touch SSH. All right. So we're going to go ahead and set that. Make sure we enable logs to go ahead and populate while we're in, and we're good. Right. Let's go ahead and save this configuration. Perfect. All right. So let's get out of, oops. There we go. All right. So now let's get out of Telnet, right? So I went ahead and got out of Telnet, right? So now let's go ahead and try to connect using SSH. Now, this is going to test my Linux knowledge. It's been a while. Okay. And did I set a username? I don't believe I did. I did not set a username. Okay. So that's what I get for rushing. Okay. Let's get in and let's do that. I'm back into console. All right. David, password, pass 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. All right. So I saved my config. Now let's go ahead and try to access it via layer 3. All right. So I'm in command prompt, right? And let's go ahead and try to put in that command again. Try to get to it, right? SSH -L, if I remember what else. Okay, the username after, if I believe. So I'm going to put my name. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and put the IP address of the device I'm trying to reach. Okay. And 25. Okay. So it's prompting me for a password. Okay. 2, 3. Oops. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right. So we're in. We are absolutely in the device. Okay. So this is how you access the device via layer 3 using SSH. Okay. Let's put in that enable password again. Boom, we're in. And so here's the thing. Let's take a look at the running configuration. Okay. I want to take a look at that, right? And examine that, right? We have SSH configured, right? And of course, we have our username, right? Let's say we create another username. Maybe we create Ryan, right? Or we create Cornelius, right? Of course, we'll have different passwords, but either way, if we want to go ahead and elevate to user exec mode, right? Or privilege mode, right? That enable password is going to be the same across the board. Okay. So just a little tidbit about navigating through the CLI and on Cisco devices. Okay. Of course, you see this password is in plain text, right? So let's say somebody got into our device and, or somebody's coming in to work on your device, help you troubleshoot, and they consulted in. They're able to see this security concern. We will touch on that in the future. Okay. Just stay with me. All right. So let's go down and see how we were able to go ahead and access the device, right? Confirm some of our configurations. As you can see, B2Y lines, it's set, right? We got our password here, right? To go ahead and log in, right? But it's using our username because, of course, with SSH, it has to use a username. Okay. So this gets bypassed and it uses what we configured here, right? Username and password. Okay. We added a couple of settings, right? Boom, right? We're in. Okay. So now that we're in, and I believe I will have to change my privilege level because privilege 1, I will not be able to do anything. So bear with me and we will talk about privilege levels in a second, at a later date. Let's go ahead and edit this. And let's put it 15, 15 being the highest level, and then my password again. Okay. All right, so that's set. Let's go back to the command prompt. And let's do that connection again. Okay. All right. Now, oops. Let's go ahead. It's going to take us a while. There we go. And then since we logged in, it brought us straight to user exec mode, right? Or user mode, as the book calls it, right? Where we have limited privileges. To do anything elevated or have a little bit more privileges, you need to go ahead and get into privilege mode. You need to type in enable, right? You guys see me type in EN. I'm went ahead and shortened it, but enable, you'll see it. And of course, it'll bring us to privilege mode. Okay, so let's look at the running configuration again. You can see that change. All right, so we'll touch on all this big stuff later. Just remember, 3 ways to go ahead and access the device. Console cable, right? Using layer 1, right? Or SSH, layer 3, or Telnet, layer 3. Okay? And again, what are the differences between Telnet and SSH? Telnet, unencrypted data is being passed, right? SSH, encrypted data is being passed. Okay? And we saw the 2 different types of modes. User mode. We are always going to see that first on either type of way that we access CLI, either console, Telnet, or SSH. We are first going to be booted into user mode. When we put in enable, we will go ahead and be brought to privilege mode or privilege exec mode, right? So we're in privilege mode. But how can we drop back down to user mode? We had to type in enable to get there. Type in disable to get there. Okay. So now let's get back into it, right? And again, I told you guys, and we'll touch on it a little bit. If you don't know a command, right? If something is unsure, always use the question mark, right? And they typically have the question mark on every platform, all right? But it's here, right? So what are we looking for? We're trying to get to privilege exec mode, right? And it explains it clearly. Enable, what does it do? Turn on privilege commands, right? It gives us privileges, right? And what does disable do? Turn off privilege commands, okay? So you want to go ahead and turn on privilege commands. We hit enable. Boom, we're in, okay? All right. Here's another quick little thing that I want to show you guys, the difference between user mode and privilege mode. Let's go ahead and do disabled again, okay? So let's talk about the CLI real quick. This is the host name of the device, okay? Of course, we have a short one here, but it can be as long as whatever you want to do it. There might be a character limit, but I'll send you a Cisco white paper if you guys want to ask about that. Okay. When you guys first boot in, you guys will be in user mode. This is how you can identify if you're in user mode or not. Okay. Number sign. You will be in privilege mode. Okay. Or enable mode, however you want to remember it. Okay. That's how you can tell the difference. Okay. All right. So just keep track of that. Right. So let's try to do some commands and let's see the difference between privilege mode and user mode. Right. Let's say I'm in, right, and I want to go ahead and try to reboot the device, right? Reboot the switch. Can I or can I not? It looks like I can't, right? Because I do not have those privileges. I am not in privilege mode, right? There's certain commands that can be ran in user mode, certain commands that can be ran in privilege mode, right? And so, as you guys can see, I cannot run a reload command in user mode. But let's go ahead and go to privilege mode, right? First, let's save our config. And let me try to run that command. It took the command, right? It took the command. I was able to go ahead and get into the device. Okay. So as you can see, that is the difference between user mode and enable mode, right? Let's wait for the switch to populate, come back up, and we can follow it via, terminal. Luckily, Putty is pretty quick, which is what I love about Packet Tracer did a good job. So we're in, we are going to have to connect again, right? So let's connect via SSH again. Probably take a while. There we go. Put in our password. Boom. We're in user mode. Let's go ahead and get to privilege mode. Boom. We're in. Okay. So we are in. We talked about CLI access. We talked about, and I'm just going through my notes and see what I have to cover. We talked about the help feature that you guys can put it anywhere. Okay. Let's talk about the help feature a little bit more detail and of course, navigating through the CLI because that's the purpose of it. All right. So, like I told you guys, if you don't know a command, you can put in a question. Okay. So let's say I want to save the configuration, right? If I type in WR and question mark, it's going to go ahead and finish it for me. Okay. It's going to tell me, hey, well, that matches the right command. Okay. So I can go ahead and type it out, right? But what if I'm still forgetting? I'm still pondering on what's next? Question mark again. Okay. It tells you what the different things can do. Okay. So let's take a look at a different type, right, of using the help command. Okay. So let's say do something. Whoops. Oh, this is a 2960, so I won't be able to do it. What command can I use? Oh, easy. What command is that? I just used it. I just used it. Let me think. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Where am I? There we go. Get my mouse. There's my mouse. Uh-oh. All right, guys. It's freezing on me. Time. That's perfect timing. Okay. All right. Battery died in that. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, there we go. Out some backers. All right, all right, there we go. All right, so we're here, right? Right, and let's say, right, we're trying to type something out, right, that has a hyphen, right? And so the hyphen, right, can go ahead and they can go ahead and finish that out as well, right? Because sometimes there's multiple commands that match what you're typing, okay? So if I type this, right, it's not going to finish it, right? So you can type that question mark at any point in the command, all right? And it'll go ahead and help you finish it, what have you, right? So just remember that, right? Always use the question mark. Don't try to guess, right? You are not a computer, okay? So just remember that, all right? Let's keep going, all right? So a couple of things you can do with the up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, and right arrow, right? If you use the up arrow while you're on the CLI, okay? Let's go ahead and give that a shot. Go ahead and give that a shot. So go ahead and look at the up arrow, right? It's going to show us previous commands that we used. Okay. All right. And so that's me just using the up arrow, right? If we want to look at previous commands. But if you do Control P, it'll do the same thing the up arrow is doing. Okay. So let's say we go ahead and do the up arrow, right? And we see a command that, oh, we went past the command that we wanted. You can use the down arrow to go back to that history buffer of commands. Okay. Or, right? So I go too far, you can use Control N, right? To go back down one level. All right. So let's say we found our command, but we want to go ahead and make some edits, right? You can edit the syntax of the characters within your command, right? Go ahead and go left, as you guys can guess, or you can type in Control B to go left, or you can go right using the right arrow, right? And of course, the control command is Control F, okay? To go one step forward, all right? Last but not least, the keystroke, of course, to make spaces is, of course, backspace, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? Keep that in mind. There's plenty of things you can do in the CLI, right? A couple more things, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So couple of things, the debug command and the show commands, right? We talked about that in chapter 4, right? The show command is going to be your bread and butter whenever you are learning about the CCNA, right? And so this is going to help you become an engineer, right? The show command is going to be your best friend. Debug, that's you got your lightsaber, but don't be out here just slinging it left and right. Okay. The show command is your bread and butter, right? And so we are going to use that frequently. But the show command can show you some basic information, help you deduce issues or current statuses and what have you. Okay. All right. So that's what that looks like. You can use the help command just like I did in front of show, and you can see the many available options. Okay. So we talked about user mode, we talked about enable mode, right? Last mode we need to talk about before we even move forward anywhere, right, is global configuration mode, right? I'm sure you guys can guess within the context is global configuration mode means we are making changes to the entire device, okay? So how do we access global configuration mode, right? In the CLI, we go ahead and put in, while in privilege mode, configure terminal, okay? So, quick pit stop. You see the market changed. This is privilege mode, and this is global configuration mode, right? And so that's an indicator to let you know, hey, you're in global config mode. All right. Again, configure terminal to go ahead and go to global configuration mode while in privilege mode. And of course, to see that you're in global configuration mode, you'll see next to the host name of the device, you will see it will say config. All right. So you guys can see that, right? And of course, here is a example of making a global change to the device. So you want to make a change to the name, right? Maybe I want to call it switch one. Okay. Boom. It's been changed globally to the entire device. All right. And there's different sub modes and different contexts that that you guys will see. I will not go in depth in it right now, right? I want you guys to read the book, take a look at it. But right, and of course we'll touch on it in later sessions, but this is the basics of the CLI, right? We still got some more things to cover in chapter 4. So the theory about using the CLI is not done, right? So the next 2 days we'll be talking about theory. And that's it, guys, right? I just wanted to have a lab fun day so you guys can see it, take a look at it, see what it looks like. If you guys have any questions, reach out. But we are good to go. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks, sir.